right now. All right, everyone, welcome to our webinar with Tripp Parker, and our topic today is the future design of actually, what is our topic? Design artificial learning. And so let me introduce Tripp. Tripp Parker is a 2007 graduate of Duke University with a degree in computer engineering, computer science, and philosophy. His undergrad work focused on artificial intelligence and philosophy of mind. And for the last 10 years, he's been at Microsoft and Amazon developing a whole variety of different projects. He holds 5 patents from his work and also oversees the learning team of the machine learning team. He lives in Kirkland, and his wife, Katie, who is a dentist, and he has a 2-year-old son. Hey, so Tripp, welcome. So
thank you.
One thing I do want to ask you is, I see computer engineering, I see computer science, but philosophy. What made you decide to take philosophy as a major?
Yeah, when I went into college, philosophy was the only major that I knew that I wanted to have. But my dad told me that I'm not building philosophy factories anymore, and so I need something that I could actually get a job doing. The area of philosophy that I'm particularly interested in is philosophy of mind. What is the nature of our minds? What is our consciousness? How does our brain work? Those kind of things. So it was topically related to what I ended up doing also on the engineering side. So it was kind of a natural fit for me to add on computer engineering, computer science to my studies there.
Got it. Hey, Tripp, thank you so much. I know it's early over at your time. It's 8:00 p.m. over in Jakarta. It's or 9 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock here, but it's early over where you are.
Yeah, no worries. Actually, I have the toddler, but then I also have a 7-month-old, and so I'm up at all hours anyway at this point.
Good. Hey, what we're going to do, everyone, is I'm going to mute all of you guys except Tripp. And so Tripp's going to talk about 35 minutes. And then from that point on, you guys have sent me a whole bunch of different questions. So I'm going to throw it Tripp's way. You okay with that?
Sounds good.
All right. Go ahead, Tripp.
All right. So I'm going to give a talk that I gave to a group here in Seattle called Kairos. Kairos is a Christian business organization trying to link Christians in the business place. Seattle's in some ways like a very big town, but there's very, very big industries here. And so there's a need to try and connect the Christians that are working in all of our various industries together so that we know what each other's doing and we can help encourage each other and help each other professionally. So this was a talk that I gave to them about what I do at Amazon and then my perspective on artificial intelligence in general. So the first thing that I think we should cover is just what is artificial intelligence? What is machine learning? What is that? And how does this differ from real intelligence is a question that I get a lot, the artificial versus what we have. Intelligence, I'll define as the ability to acquire and apply knowledge. So in that sense, artificial intelligence is very real. I don't like the real versus not real distinction when we're talking about what we're building in terms of machine learning systems. But there are different kinds of real intelligence. There's specific intelligence and there's general intelligence. Specific intelligence is the ability to learn and solve one type of problem. So for instance, a self-driving car is solving one type of problem, but a self-driving car can't translate speech. It can't recognize faces. And a facial recognition AI can't drive a car. These are specific intelligences. It's an intelligent system that's designed to solve one particular type of problem. General intelligence is what you are. You can both recognize faces, you can translate, you can also drive a car, you can vacuum your house, you can cook. So these are the main difference. What we have now in AI is specific intelligence. We do not have anything like a generally intelligent system, and we're not sure how to build that right now. That's kind of like beyond the scope of what our engineering prowess is. Then there's another important difference between like you and an AI is that consciousness. That's an awareness of external objects as things in themselves or of yourself as an individual. So obviously AIs being specific intelligence that are trying to solve one particular type of problem are not going to have this level of awareness. They don't think of themselves as things in themselves. You think of yourself as an individual. Again, we don't even know even conceptually how to build that. a machine that's aware of itself. This kind of seems spooky in a lot of ways, how this would be built. So the AI's current state, it's real, but it's specific unconscious intelligence. That's the difference. So how does this differ from normal computer programs? A lot of people say, well, how is this different than, like, you know, is this just like a fancy calculator that you're building? The difference between a machine learning system or an AI and what I'll call like a normal algorithm is that an algorithm is a set of instructions for completing a task. An example would be figuring out how much Tylenol you take, right? You look at the back of the bottle and you say, okay, well, I'm this age or this weight, and I'm going to take X number. That's an algorithm. That's a set of instructions that you're supposed to follow. Another example would be when you bake a cake. You're executing an algorithm, right? There's a set of instructions, step by step, that you're supposed to do. If you do that, you're following an algorithm. If you've ever written a recipe, you've written an algorithm. Important features with a normal algorithm, the behavior system is very deterministic and easy to understand, right? I can just look at the code. Now, computer algorithms are written in a different language than what, you know, it's not written in English or whatever. It's written in a computer language, but it is still an algorithm. It is no fundamentally different than what a recipe is. And if we want to know why did my cake taste too salty, I just look at the directions and I see how much salt we put in there and we say, okay, that was too much. That's how normal computer code works. That's not at all how artificial intelligence works. So you can think about AI as a system that's trying to spot patterns. So machine learning, you give a mathematical system a bunch of data to consider when deciding how much to optimize a problem or answer a question and have it figure it out. You don't tell it how. An example would be give an AI a bunch of pictures of dogs and then a bunch of pictures of wolves. Say, this one's a dog, this one's a wolf, this one's a dog. Give it hundreds, thousands, give it millions of these pictures. Don't tell it how to figure out the difference. Have it spot the patterns itself. And we've actually built this system. So we've actually trained, you know, it was a long time ago, it's kind of a famous paper where they did that. They scraped images from the internet and gave a neural net, a type of machine learning system, a bunch
I'm not
of.
sure I understand.
My Siri's going off on me. So we gave that a bunch of pictures from the internet, and we had it guess another one that it hadn't seen. So we give it another picture of a dog that it hadn't seen and said, is this a dog or is this a wolf? And it guessed right. Okay, and so then we gave it more wolves, more dogs. Is it guessing right? It is. Okay, great. Looks like it's figured it out. But we don't know how. We don't know how it was figuring it out. We don't know what specifically it was looking for in those pictures. And in fact, that's probably true for you too. If I asked you to give me an algorithm for determining a difference between a wolf and a dog, you would probably struggle with that, right? You might say, well, wolves have pointy ears. And that's true, but some dogs do too. You would say, you know, well, wolves are a little bit bigger. And you're like, that's true, but St. Bernards are pretty big. You know, we might say, well, you know, a lot of them are gray. And you're like, some dogs are too. So if I asked you to give you just a real algorithm, a set of instructions that's deterministic, I know exactly how to spot a wolf from a dog, you would probably struggle with that too. And so we gave it to the AI system and it seemed to have figured it out, but we don't know what it was looking for really. And so eventually we found out, we gave it more pictures and it started getting them wrong and we couldn't figure out why. I say we the community and the people who wrote this paper, and they couldn't figure out why. And so they kind of reverse engineered it and then they spotted a pattern. The pattern was people like to take pictures of wolves when they're on snow. That's the preponderance of all the pictures of the internet of wolves were them on snow. And so you could give it a chihuahua on snow and it's going to say, hey, that's totally a wolf. And if you give it a wolf on grass or in a yard or something like that, it's going to think it's a dog. It was actually not looking at the animal itself. It was looking at the environment that the animal is in. Namely, the snow was the telling factor. And so you could give it the most ridiculous picture of a dog on snow, put a hat on it, all those kind of things, and it's going to think that's a wolf. So why should we be concerned, right? There's a lot of worry about AI, and I'm going to try and give kind of the steel man argument for why it could be concerning. The primary concern is not spooky emergent consciousness, but simply the ability to make high quality decisions, right? We don't understand how the AI is making decisions. We just know that it's making decisions and predictions about the world. But how do we make sure that it's making high quality ones? We want the AIs to align with our values, but who decides what those are and why is that hard? So I'm going to use an example here, and that example is from the movie Fantasia. So this is the Sorcerer's Apprentice. In the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mickey is the apprentice, and the sorcerer gives him a task. I want you to fill this cauldron up with water. And Mickey, the sorcerer goes to bed, but leaves his magic hat. And so Mickey picks up the hat and says, okay, well, I'm going to use magic, obviously, to fill the cauldron. And so he tries. And so he does magic, and he makes the broom animate, and now the broom is filling the cauldron. Okay. So Mickey, in essence, Mickey gave the broom a set of values. Fill the cauldron. That's good. You should desire to do that. A mostly filled cauldron is pretty good, and an empty cauldron is bad. So in machine learning or artificial intelligence, we would call this the cost function, right? We want to minimize the cost of doing this task. And so we give it essentially mathematical rewards for maximizing the chances of doing the thing that we want. And so if you know the story, you know what happens. The broom overfills the cauldron. Why did that happen? Well, it didn't actually align. That set of values, the full cauldron good, empty cauldron bad, did not fully align with Mickey's actual values. It wasn't actually what Mickey wanted. It was just kind of a really rough approximation of it. A full cauldron is good for sure, and a mostly full cauldron is bad. An empty cauldron is bad. A flooded workshop, that's super bad. If someone died, that's horrible. These are all what we would call tacit assumptions, right? A human, I want the cauldron full, but obviously don't ruin my house doing it. But you can't. The machine doesn't have common sense or anything like that. It's going to actually execute according to the values that you give it and the cost that you give it. So here's the problem: there's an infinite number of these. There is no set of these that I could give the AI that would be comprehensive. I care about a lot of things that I can't even describe. Or aware of until you do it. So the problem is who is making these decisions, right? Who, when designing these systems, is actually giving these values to the AIs, and what is the purpose? So we have, humans, we think up the goals and values of the problems that we want the AI to solve. Who's making this decision? The short answer is everyone and anyone. There are no regulations around this in terms of what we can use AIs for, unless we're driving on public roads or something like that. But in terms of developing the system itself, there's absolutely no regulations. The scary part is no one's in charge. The more scary part to me is that even if we all agreed on our values generally, it's hard or impossible to figure out what all our AI should consider. So these are the tacit assumptions. These are the things that Mickey didn't tell the broom about because he didn't think he needed to, right? And the AI will solve. The problem with AIs is that they will spot patterns and solve things in ways that did not occur to you. They will make predictions that would not ever enter your head, like looking at snow to figure out if it's a wolf. They will do that and they will act on it because they don't have those same kind of tacit assumptions. So then we have the intended values, the things that we write down, and then we have the interpreted values. What is the AI actually going to end up executing on? So kind of the state of the art right now in kind of general intelligence and value researching is there a way for the AIs to observe us and learn what our values are? Can they spot patterns in how we act and interpret what those values are and what we want them to do? Can they see me filling the cauldron and know, hey, I care about it being overfull? And you might think, well, why would the AI ever overfill the cauldron anyway? And you have to think about it like this. The AI is actually trying to maximize the chance of having a full cauldron, okay? But there's a lot of things that could go wrong. I can fill the cauldron, but what if it leaks, right? What if the sensor detecting a full cauldron is faulty on the AI? there's a lot of things that could go wrong, even though I think the cauldron's full or I already filled it. And so the AI is going to say, well, what is in this example, the AI would be like, well, what's the way that I can maximize the chance that I have a completely full cauldron all the time? And one possible answer would be just incessantly dump water into it. That's not something that a human would ever do. That's something that's totally the kind of thing that an AI would do. So is there a way, though, for AIs to learn our values without being explicitly told, by observing us? So if an AI can observe me doing this task, can it learn and interpret the values and the way that I think this task should be done? This is a really hard technical problem. There's lots of research being done here, but this is kind of state of the art, and this is where we need to get to, and we're not there yet. Part of the problem is that we actually want AIs also to not just solve the problem in the exact same way we would, but to spot better ways of doing it. So how do we separate out the method by which we're solving a problem from the values that we have when solving a problem? This is hard. If an AI can figure out a better way of filling the cauldron other than the way that I was doing it, I want him to do that. But I don't want him to do it in such a way that it ruins things. And so in that metaphor, that's kind of the illustration there, is that it's really hard to kind of extract out the values from the goals. So there's big risks here in AI. So let's talk about them. There's hostile actors problem. There's an arms race towards hacking and warfare. AI is going to be very, very good at this, and is already being used in a lot of drone technology. There's the social problems. Can humans handle this? AI will increasingly mimic human behaviors, and you can already see it. Kind of like, think about how much better Siri is now than she was 5 years ago, even though she goes off in the middle of a talk. It will increasingly be able to behave like a human, and there's a real possibility that we start to prefer interacting with the AI versus other people. There's massive job displacement. AIs will take over a majority of current occupations. The way I think that you should think about this is not so much that there won't be accountants or lawyers, but the majority of the tasks that a lawyer or an accountant will do will increasingly be done by an AI, by some kind of machine learning system. And so what I would call that is job shredding. We will have accountants and lawyers. We will just have a lot fewer of them, because one lawyer can do what 20 could do previously. And so we're going to need fewer of them. And so we're going to need to deal with that, because this could happen very, very rapidly. There's the intentional misuse, right? So AI being used without the common good in mind. So there's privacy concerns, obviously. There's a lot of perverse incentives in AI. So the more data I have, the better my AI is going to be. And so I have incentive to learn as much about you as I possibly can. If that's mining your email, if that's your phone, if that's, even like, government mining it on the actual infrastructure level. This is a real problem, because there are perverse incentives here. The person that does this best will have a leg up in developing the best AI. There's manipulation of people toward personal ends. You already see this in advertising. Marketing and advertising is essentially already a machine learning AI-driven industry. And if you use Google or anything else like that, like, those ads are being targeted specifically to you based on everything Google knows about you. Same thing with Facebook. And you already see there's this big, uproar about what happened in the 2016 election with Facebook. AI can manipulate you. One very pernicious example of this that I saw, and it really kind of shook me, was an AI that would actually, based on what it knows about you, would actually remove information from news articles in order to get you to take certain action or have a certain opinion about it. It wouldn't lie to you. It wouldn't falsify information. It would just slightly change what information was presented to you based on what we know about you, and say, okay, if I want you to have a positive attitude toward this, I need to remove this particular piece of information that might make you question it. So there's a lot of perverse incentives here. AIs can figure out ways of manipulating you en masse in ways that humans just can't. And then there's the accidental stuff. So this is where AI values don't align with ours. This is the Mickey example. One example here is in the criminal justice systems, a lot of states use machine learning systems to try and predict recidivism in prisoners. So how likely is this prisoner, once they get out of prison, to commit another crime? Okay, and you might think, well, that's good, is if it's accurate. And the thing is that it was accurate. One of the things that it was proven that it was taking into consideration was race, for instance. And so then the question is that, are we okay with that as a society? Is race really a variable that I want to allow the AI to use to predict whether or not you should stay in prison or not? You know, there are differing opinions, but that's the problem, is that we need to make sure that the AI is doing what we want it to do, and it's adhering to our values and not just going and doing things that's going to cause problems. So then why even bother with AI? I just listed a bunch of scary things that AI can do, and why should we even bother with it? Well, there's big opportunities. I think that it's very possible that within our lifetimes, I work in Alexa Health and Wellness. So I work specifically for Amazon in the health and medical care space in a new division for Alexa. I think it's very possible that within my lifetime, we have something akin to an automated scientist. And what I mean by that is, imagine, a machine learning model that could model really, really well a particular kind of cancer cell. And it can think of a billion ways of killing or stopping that cancer cell from replicating itself in your body and metastasizing. And then imagine that we have another model, another AI that can model a pancreas. And of those billion ways that we figure out that we can mess with this cancer cell, we try those and then model what that does to your pancreas. And then we do it for the entire endocrine system. And then we do it for your entire body. And then we do it for your entire body over a period of 10 years. And then maybe of those billion ways that the AI figured out to mess with that cancer cell, maybe a couple of them actually work. And that's how we cure cancer. I think that that's really a possibility. There's obviously optimizing infrastructure and large scale solutions. So you think about, smart grids for energy, better data about how people are going to behave if we implement a particular public policy, better predicting natural disasters, hurricane paths, all those kind of things, and automating the response and supply chain. This is all something that AI will be very, very good at that humans are not. Oh, I just lost my lights. 1 second. I think I wasn't moving enough. And then there's the massive increase in productivity. So we already talked about there's fewer resources needed to produce goods and services. This is the lawyer and the accountant example. That what it might take an entire office full of accountants to do today, you'll be able to do with one, or you may not even need to be an accountant to do it. And AI can handle the complicated cognitive tasks that need to happen. That means we're richer as a world. Fewer resources needed to produce the same or better results. That means we're richer by definition. And this is economic expansion on a scale not seen since the Industrial Revolution. This is huge. Now, will these resources be evenly distributed? Well, no, not naturally. It will increasingly be kind of concentrated. And so we will, as a society, will have to deal with, what to do about that. But there's no doubt that this is going to make the entire world way, way richer. So the whole point here is, we as Christians should enhance, not degrade God's creation. And so I don't know if you saw this video on YouTube, but I encourage you to watch it. So this little girl is named Charlotte, and she was born deaf. Now, I'm not making a claim one way or the other about hearing aids and whether or not they're right for everyone. I know I have deaf friends and they have differing opinions on this. So I'm not making a claim about this. I'm just talking about this particular girl. This particular girl, her parents could hear and she could not. And as a baby, her friends and family kind of chipped in to buy her this hearing aid. And so what you see on the left is for the first time, this little girl hearing her mom say, "I love you." And you can see a smile on her face that she's reacting to this. This means something to her. And on the right, you can see what is the closest I've ever seen to a baby crying tears of joy. That like it meant something to her. She's smiling, and then she's like, it really hit her what's going on. You can see that in her face. And watch the video if you don't believe me that that's what's going on there. It was a really beautiful moment. And that's what technology can do. And that's how I view AI, is a way of enhancing our world, not degrading it, not to manipulate you, but to empower you. So how should Christians think about this? So I'm going to make a couple theological claims, and then we can go to Q&A. One is that we're called to be salt and light. So the meaning of that verse is that light illuminates, it shows the truth, and salt preserves. It keeps things from degrading. So the practical application I'm going to claim is that AI is going to be built. The only questions are by who and for what purpose. And this is why Christians have to be involved in this industry. We can't stick our head in the sand and say, no, this is messy. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to do these other things. We need to be salt and light, especially in something as important as AI development. Theological claim number 2 is that our faith is in the way, the truth, and the life, meaning that telling the truth, following it, living it matters. It has real effect in the world. So being part of the modern world, and having kind of the influence you have, that you are in a unique position to influence people. The most influential people in my life are not, machine learning scientists. They're family members. They're people in my church. My English teacher growing up. You actually can influence the future of AI just by living out your faith where you're at. You're not an island. We're part of a web of communities throughout the world. And so I don't like it when people think, well, I'm not working in this particular problem, so does it really apply to me? And my point is always, yes, you living out your faith actually matters, because you don't know who's going to end up working on any of these problems. The theological claim number 3 is that we should be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So as business leaders and those kind of things, even if you're not working in AI, you're going to be handed the ability to use AI for advertising, at least right now, and in the future for a whole lot of things. Be true to your faith. The way that you use these technologies influences the way that I design them. So a lot of people think that, a lot of people make the claim that, technology is neutral, right? It's a tool, and you can use tools for good or evil or whatever. And I always push back against that. And so, and the example I always use is that of a chair. A chair is not neutral. It begs to be sat in a certain way. You can't just approach it in any way, and you can't just use it for anything. It has a purpose. It has a telos. And so AI is very much the same. It's designed for something. And the question is, be using it. So increasingly, as you use it, and I would encourage you to use these tools as they become made available to you, really thinking about how you're using them, because how you end up using them influences how I end up designing them. And so you actually have, as consumers, the ability to influence the industry just by being really thoughtful about, I'm going to use it for this purpose. I don't feel right about this particular purpose, and be loud about that. Okay, so that's kind of the end of my talk. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I hope I didn't. Yeah, I think we're on time.
Yeah, Tripp, thank you. You know what? I am going to ask you some questions real fast, and then from that point on, after that, I'll leave it open to some people, but everyone's emailed a couple of different things. For you personally, Tripp, how does AI align with your faith, and how did you have to wrestle with AI in your own personal faith?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that so if you take a look at Jesus's miracles, you can argue that that there's a couple of different categories of them, but one of them is he's doing miracles that restore things to the way they were before the fall, right? So he's healing the sick, he's giving people, he's feeding people, he's restoring blindness, he's doing all those he's restoring sight to the blind, he's doing those kind of things. So he's healing the world. And so that's why I like doing AI and machine learning, specifically in the health and wellness space, because I don't feel the tension that I do in some of the other some of the other applications with doing that to the best of my ability. Because if I can make you healthier, I think that that's totally something that's very much in line with what Jesus was doing. Other parts, I have worked some in doing machine learning applications for advertising. I got out of that because I didn't like some of the uses of it. I thought that the same thing that I could use, the same machine learning system that I would use to try and get you the right ad that would actually be useful to you, can also be used to get you an ad for something that's bad for you, depending on who's actually setting the incentives and bidding and all those kind of things. And so I didn't feel good about that. And then the last area is, in the past 2 elections, I've gotten pretty lucrative offers from both political parties to help target election ads as part of their marketing efforts. And I have turned down those each time, and I will never be taking a job like that. I don't feel right about it. And the reason I don't feel right about it isn't that I don't have political opinions, but I don't feel good about trying to convince people en masse in that way to change their vote or not vote or something like that. Because it's one thing if I'm sitting across from you and we're talking and I'm getting to know you and your concerns in your life and those kind of things, and I have like a one-on-one conversation with you about, what's going on. I don't feel good about doing that, building a system that can manipulate lots of people. I feel that's manipulation versus just having a conversation. So those are kind of the ways that I think about it. And that's why I kind of moved into the medical space, because I just feel much better about using my talents there.
Yeah. Hey, Tripp, this leads us to the next question is, and sometimes we know what's going to happen 50 years from now, or at least we could predict, but tangibly, what industries will be disrupted the most by AI in the next 5 years, in the next 2 years even?
I mean, so the one that we always keep talking about is transportation. Transportation, we have a lot of the technology, especially kind of in countries like the US, and we have a lot of the models trained that can do a lot of the self-driving cars. I mean, Uber's already testing, self-driving cars in Pittsburgh and those kind of things. And a large portion of, especially young men without college degrees, work in the transportation industry. And so it could be a real destabilizing force in the United States, especially. So the transportation industry for sure. And, in the next, say, 5 years, I have a bet with my wife that she's already conceded I'm going to win, that our toddler will never learn to drive. And he'll just use self-driving cars by the time he's, in 13 years or whatever, he will, that technology will already be ubiquitous, I'm sure. Beyond that, things start getting messy. Then it's the thing about AI is that it's not just, we tend to think about it just being like low skill jobs. I say low skill in quotes, like, manufacturing jobs and those kind of things that get replaced by technology. But the thing about AI is that it doesn't have to be that. It can be accountants, it can be lawyers, it can be doctors. Like radiology is one such area. Anesthesiology is another one that AI can already do it better than people. Really, there's the regulatory framework to navigate, but we're already better at spotting cancerous tumors with an AI system than we are with an actual doctor. And so anesthesiologists would be another thing. It's just a matter of people getting comfortable with it. But that technology is already here, and if the floodgates get open, when that happens, it'll happen fast, because there's a lot of economic incentive. These are expensive people. A good lawyer, a good accountant, a good radiologist, a good anesthesiologist, they're expensive. They're not cheap. And so there's a lot of economic incentive to use these AI systems that are already better, and they work for free. So those are the kind of industries that I could definitely see in the near term.
Yeah. Hey, what about the area of education? Do you see schools? Do you see how we train kids, teachers, the role of teachers? Is that going to be affected by AI?
The thing is, so I think that, in terms of like teachers and for any job, I would say like we would have to divide up the job into the types of tasks that, like, the AI is not going to replace the job. It's going to replace certain tasks within the job. And so there's certain things that a teacher can do in terms of just like talking to a 4 or 5 year old and looking them in the eye and holding their hand and those kind of things that an AI is not going to be able to do anytime soon. So I think that it's not going to replace teachers. I could see, a lot of kind of back end like policy level AIs, like looking at different teaching methodologies and those kind of things and making recommendations and predictions about test scores and all those kind of things, helping out the industry. But I don't anticipate like those kind of jobs, because so much of the tasks that take up that job are not AI friendly right now. We don't have the technology for it. So I think that's going to be a longer term one. I wouldn't worry about teachers specifically, or personal trainers, or anything that's like very personal, very kind of one-on-one type stuff. That stuff's going to be really hard to replace. But there, I say that, but then, like think about a therapist, like a counselor or a psychiatrist. We have a system that was that basically just listened to the sound of a person's voice and what they said, and was really good, about twice as good as a normal psychiatrist at spotting bipolar disorder. And so what's interesting about that is that's one particular task that you might want your psychiatrist to be able to do, right? And so we can replace that task, but there's a lot of other things a psychiatrist is going to do that we can't replace. So that's something where I think that the AI could come alongside the person and make recommendations, be like, X% chance that this person has bipolar disorder. And the psychiatrist looks at that kind of like a doctor would look at a blood panel or something like that, and use that as part of their treatment of that person. So the AI will come along the psychiatrist in that example to help them be better at their job.
Got it. Hey, Tripp, this actually ties in with another question. You mentioned the term AI friendly. Talk a little bit about that.
So AI friendly would be like a task that an AI would be good at, that we know how to solve. And so, some of it is data driven. If we don't have enough data, then it's not an AI friendly problem, because we have to train AI. Again, we're not giving an algorithm to solve the task. We need to give the AI a bunch of data to figure out how to solve the task. And so we don't have enough data, or there's so many variables that the amount of data that we have, we can't control for, then it's not an AI friendly problem. And then there's other things that are more creative, and less repetitive. So anything that's like what I would call cognitively repetitive. Mm-hmm. So like, filling out, a tax form or something like that is cognitively repetitive, right? There's a right way of doing it, and there's a wrong way of doing it. But then there's creative tasks that aren't AI friendly. And so, we're trying, there is a lot of research being done on trying to do creative tasks, like make music and those kind of things. But those kind of tasks right now are not very AI friendly, because it's not cognitively repetitive, right? We don't want the same song written over and over. We want something new. And so, or producing like content for a YouTube channel or anything like that, that's not AI friendly, because there's not enough, there's so few people that do that really well, that we don't know how to train an AI to do it well. And so that would be another example of a non-AI friendly task.
Got it. Which goes back, in terms of what you were talking about in non-cognitive, is how close are we? Here's what one person wrote. How close are we for AI to continue to grow in developing common sense or creativity? Do we still have a long way to go, or are we making strides little by little to develop creativity and common sense?
Yeah, we're making strides. So I know I have a friend that works at Google, and she's a Christian, and she's an AI researcher there, and they're working on ways of training an AI to produce classical music, like new classical music. And so we're making strides to it. It's still not perfect, and again, it's specific. So that particular AI system can do that particular task okay, but it can't produce even other kinds of music. Like classical music is the only thing that it can do. And it does it okay, still not as good as a real composer or the best composers. And so how close are we? Like, we're making strides for sure, in terms of like learning our values and those kind of things. We're doing a lot of research there. I would say we're not close, but it's hard to predict with AI. The thing about this is that AI, so there's no fire alarm for AI in the sense that, fire alarm, ideally, like, you get warned about a fire before the fire actually like blazes out of control, right? There's no fire for it because it happens so fast. A good example of this would be the AlphaGo game. I don't know if you guys heard about that. So this is kind of a big deal in the industry. So Google created this AI called AlphaGo to play this game called Go, and it's a very, very complicated game, way more complicated than chess. Computers have been better at chess than humans for a long time. But Go was something that was very, very complicated of a game, and we didn't have an AI that could play it very well. And so Google developed this one called AlphaGo, and it played the maybe the best Go player ever. Is this South Korean guy, and everyone was predicting that this AI was going to get wiped off the map by this guy because we'd never seen anyone play. We'd never seen an AI play Go very well, or at least to this level. And basically the AI just like the first 3 games that they played, the AI just killed him. And that happened very, very quickly. Not 2 weeks after that, they trained another AI that beat the first AI. In 1,000 games, beat it 1,000 times. And so that happened so fast that we went from, not a month before, no AI can beat the best Go players in the world, to AIs can reliably beat the best Go players in the world, to now we have an AI that can beat that AI 100% of the time. And so these things happen so fast, it's hard for me to predict. We're making progress, but it's one of those things where we could cross some kind of inflection point with the technology. Someone discovers a new way of designing the system, or a new way of training the model, and it goes really, really fast. So these are really hard things to predict. There are no fire alarms here.
Got it. Hey, Tripp, I'm not sure if you're able to answer this question. Let me know, but here's one. In Indonesia, there are still a lot of people, especially in the job industry, doing repetitive jobs that will be disrupted by AI. In your opinion, what is the solution for those people in a country where there will be fewer jobs because of that industry?
And honestly, I don't think that that's unlike the United States. I don't think that Indonesia is alone there. There's a lot of jobs in the United States that are repetitive. In fact, you could argue that most of the tasks and most of our jobs are repetitive. And so I don't think it's just an Indonesia problem. I think that's just an economic problem across the board. What we're going to have to do is essentially train people to use the AI alongside their jobs. And so what we're going to do is we're going to shred jobs. We'll create some more. If you can get trained to use the AI, not program it or anything else like that. I'm not talking about learning to code and those kind of things. But just to use these systems to become very, very good at your job, or use these systems to become quickly good at another job that has demand. We're going to have to move people around. In other words, we're going to have to move human capital. We can't, we're not going to be able to just like stay status quo in this way. And it's very much going to be the same thing in the United States.
Yeah. Tripp, you mentioned, for some of you guys who are not familiar with U.S. history, Tripp mentioned the Industrial Revolution that happened in the U.S. that completely changed and ushered the U.S. into a whole new area of industry development, different things like that. We look at AI now in terms of the industry developing globally for countries, Tripp.
Yeah.
For countries that may not have the resources to invest in AI, do you think the growth of AI design will mutually benefit them or will hurt them as we continue to grow and develop?
I think it will be beneficial, because I think that it will allow everyone to accomplish more with less. So this particularly benefits you if you want to do something with fewer resources. This is going to be I would almost argue that this is going to be better for the developing world than the United States or Western Europe. Because it's going to allow you to accomplish really, really fantastic things with a lot fewer resources than it would normally take. So I think that's great. And so, talking about the Industrial Revolution, I think 100 years ago, I think something like 93% like 120 years ago, something like 93% of Americans worked in agriculture. So they were farmers. And today, about 7% do. That's what the Industrial Revolution did. It automated agriculture to an extent that we needed far fewer people doing it. And no one would argue that we would be better going back to that. And no one would make the argument that, hey, we really need to go back to 93% farming. That would be a really bad idea. And so I think that we should be more optimistic about the future. And I think especially a country like Indonesia will really benefit from this. And it'll be in some ways more painful for the United States.
Got it. With jobs that are surviving, going back to jobs, with jobs that are surviving or changing, what type of jobs will start developing? Will we have new management structures? Will we have jobs that require more social skills, emotional intelligence, empathy? How do you see the type of jobs that are creating? How would that change or redevelop?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. I think that it's going to be jobs that are very social. I think that we're going to be able to solve problems that we've never been able to solve before. And so this is going to benefit people that can talk to people and find out what their problems are, right? And then use AI and use some of this new technology to try and make that problem go away for that person. And that's a job, right? That's what we get paid for. And so that's where I think that that kind of creativity and flexibility in your job, and not saying, okay, it's going to be 9 to 5, I'm going to come here to this desk, I'm going to do this and all those kind of things. It's going to be more social. And I think that could be good for us, versus, kind of staring at a calculator or something like that. We get out and actually talk to people about their problems, and we search for new problems to solve with this technology. I think those, it's hard to predict, because we'll be able to solve completely new kind of problems, and we will be less focused on the problems that we have today. What new things will we care about that we want to solve? And so I think that, obviously there's climate change. There's a whole lot of big problems that need solving. And AI is going to help with that. And people that's going to be essentially, I would argue, a new industry that's going to crop up.
Got it. Hey, and Lucas, tell me if I'm saying it wrong, but Tripp, there was a question that came in with the person who's starting a startup, in some sense, an online counseling app. Other than compiling enough data, what other things do I need to be thinking about to prepare myself to create a robust AI system, especially if my business is going to be online?
Yeah, so I think that first, just have in mind what kind of questions and solution, like what kind of problems or predictions do you want the AI to make, right? So what do you want it, like what's the end goal? What is it you're going to try and get it to predict and give you an answer on? And then what are all of the potential variables that you could, like, collect the data for sure, and collect it in a very schematic way, collect it in a very structured way. And do it for everyone, and do it for things that you don't even think could possibly be relevant, because you don't know. I would argue, especially for counseling and those kind of things, to the extent that you can get people to also connect your system to, say, their social media activity, various things like that, because how someone is talking online actually is a really good indicator of mental health, for instance. And AIs are pretty good at predicting whether or not someone's depressed by looking at their Twitter account, for instance. So a lot of those things, I would try and make it schematic, connect it to things that you don't like, to variables that you don't even know how this could be relevant. And then try as much as you can to connect your system to what their digital life is. So have them like you on Facebook and all those kind of things, not just from a marketing perspective, but so that you can actually, there might be data there that that it would be impossible for you to get them to type into your computer, but they're putting it on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever all day long. And so that might be good data for you in terms of counseling, that I would definitely look at. There's a lot of really good stuff that we can do by just analyzing the kind of things people are posting to social media in terms of mental health.
Got it. Hey, we've talked a lot about jobs. What about everyday items or tools? I mean, you can share a little bit what you're doing, but across the board, what do you see types of tools that will continue to help develop humanity and how we operate life?
Yeah, I mean, I think increasingly you're going to increasingly the type of AIs. I don't know if you guys saw this. Google showed this video of this personal assistant, and I like look it up online. But it's this personal assistant that could call and make a haircut appointment for you. And so they played this, and so they told okay, Google, schedule a haircut between 10 and 1 on Tuesday, right? And so this AI called the hair place that it knows that this person was going to based on its calendar and past behaviors, called it, talked to someone, um, negotiated the time, asked for options, negotiated the time, did all this kind of stuff, made it, put it on the person's calendar. The person on the phone from the hair cutting place had no idea that it was talking to an AI, none whatsoever. It sounded, even from like little things, like a little slight pause or the AI saying, those kind of things, it's gotten so lifelike that it can start to do those kind of tasks for people. And so those are some of the tools that I would say that you're going to get more and more of that very, very soon. Amazon, I don't know if you guys know about the Amazon Go store, but those kind of things are going to start becoming ubiquitous, not just in the Amazon Go store, but in larger stores eventually. So they're going to use that same kind of technology where you walk in, you take the stuff, you leave. You never actually had to, check out, with the cashier or anything else like that. It's all kind of online. And so that's all computer vision based. And so that's another type of AI system. So I think there's going to be I think it's going to really kind of blow people's minds what AI is going to be able to do in the next couple of years in terms of like just the everyday tools that they're going to be able to use.
All right, Tripp, one last question, and you probably may need to explain that to everyone. Should we try to create ML algorithms, not sure what that is, or other AI algorithms, or would our time be better used to try to implement what is already available? And for those who don't know, like me, what is a ML algorithm versus AI algorithm?
Well, yeah. So usually people use those. Kind of interchangeably. Machine learning is a type of AI. And so it's like a subset of artificial intelligence, which is kind of like a broader umbrella. It would be so yeah. So that I almost don't even. It would be hard to describe the difference between them and how it would differ from potential other types. Basically, all the AI that we have today is machine learning. And so we kind of use them, interchangeably. There's theoretically some other kinds of AI, but we don't really use them, and they haven't been developed. They're more theoretical. So machine learning we kind of use them interchangeably. So I think that we do need. I think we do need to spend time producing new kinds of machine learning models. The thing is that a lot of the really great stuff that we can do today with machine learning models, it's very, very energy intensive. And so the sheer amount of energy, for instance, to have like IBM's Watson run or whatever, is pretty staggering. And the amount of money it takes to run one of these like little bitty Amazon Go stores, in terms of the specialized hardware and those kind of things, is really kind of staggering. So I think that we do need to, I think we do need to keep working on new kinds of models and researching those, because we're going to be able to solve some really cool problems. But energy is not free, and these computers that run these algorithms is pretty compute intensive. And so it's just expensive to run something very, very complicated. And if I want an automated scientist to help me cure cancer, that's going to be complicated. And so we need to keep, producing better and better ones that are more and more, compute friend, like kind of reduced complexity and those kind of things. So I think we do need, I think it's a both and. I think we need to really focus on taking what we have now and implementing it. And then we also need to continue to research new ones.
Got it. Tripp, thank you. Hey, last thing for you. What can the group be praying for you about? How can we be supporting as we continue to get to know you? How can the group encourage you?
Yeah, I would pray. I would pray that, obviously I'm working on a few products, so definitely pray for the ones that I'm building right now that I can't really talk about, but I think they're going to make a big difference if we can get them out. Besides that, I think that we just pray that more Christians, there's actually a surprising number of Christians in machine learning and artificial intelligence. But pray that more and more get into it. Pray that this is something that really the people that have the talent and the interest, they really get into it. It's not only a good career right now, but I want the right people with the right values to be working and thinking on this. And so it's good for me whenever I find a Christian in the industry that's working on the kind of things that I'm working on, because I get better at my job and it also strengthens my faith. So you could pray for that as well.
Got it. Hey, for everyone, thank you. Thank you very much. We want to make sure we honor Tripp's time. We want to make sure we honor your time as well, too. Come January, we're going to do another one of these webinars, but we hope to present high-quality leaders like Tripp to really be able to come alongside what we're trying to do. And so, guys, I'm going to pray. Hey, Tripp, do you have 2 minutes to stick around after we're done?
Sure.
Okay, God, Father, thank you for how you are always working in and through us, especially with our work in our industry. And we continue to pray for Tripp, and we lift him up to you. We pray for everyone else that are on this call as well, too, that wherever we're at, Lord, as we continue to look at this topic of AI, that we are looking upon you with gospel-centered lenses, that we're asking how we can use this industry to continue to proclaim the gospel and do good and to help other people, because that's what you call us to do. So as we go forth, Lord, hear our voice, allow us to genuinely seek you and make a difference in this world. In Christ we pray. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Hey, Tripp, thank you very much. Oh, let me stop recording here.